Andrew Brandt, ESPN Sports Illustrated, asked the question that I kind of been asking earlier today in his column over at SI.com, MMQB. You know, the question that I asked is, why does the NFL have a rule about this? And now that they do and someone broke the rule, are they going to make an example of said player, that being Tom Brady? Do they have enough on Tom Brady? And, we'll see what the decision is. It could be coming down today, but how about the opportunity for them to fix this by making either no rule or one formal rule? Let's bring Andrew Brandt in at at AD Brandt, BRANDT on Twitter, and he joins us now on 97.3. Andrew, welcome.
Yeah, good to be with you, and I'm hearing your question. I mean, I think what we have to get past, and again, I don't want to accuse Patriot Nation, but it seems to be a huge divide out there on Twitter, radio, everywhere between the people that are in Patriot Nation, people that aren't, on how they feel about this. But I just wonder sometimes what people want to see in these reports. When they say there's not evidence, there's only this more likely than not and generally aware, we're not going to see a text from Tom Brady saying, yes, let's cheat, here's how I cheat, here's how I do it. You're just not going to have that in any case. So what we have, in my opinion, is a mountain of circumstantial evidence that I think is pretty strong. I mean, everyone talks about a 240-page report, but they spent 100 days. They didn't wallow. They didn't make this thing up out of thin air. There's no witch hunt out here. There's evidence that there was something going on in tampering of footballs. In terms of what's going to happen next, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I just think it's important to realize circumstantial evidence is evidence. It may not be this, oh, wow, here's a text that says how they did it. No, but it is evidence. We've got a guy on their team, employee, that calls himself the Deflater. I mean, come on. So there is evidence for those who saying, there's not much there. To me, there's a lot there.
Yeah, and I guess the one question would be, would Tom Brady be suspended for being a part of this or for not cooperating in some, to the fullest extent here? How do you think the league is looking at Brady with the evidence that's out there?
Well, I think there's going to be four parties subject to discipline here. The two are unfortunately, or whatever, are people don't care about. That's the two lower-level employees, the locker room attendant and the ball boy. They're not going to be, or the equipment assistant. They may lose their jobs. They may be suspended a year. Who knows what's going to happen to them? And frankly, I hear a lot of no one really caring what happens to them. The other party before we get to Brady is the team. Now, the report fully exonerates Belichick and Robert Kraft, but we have precedent. You remember, ignorance is not an excuse, and Rich McKay was just dinged a couple months ago because his people under him were piping in crowd noise. So this could happen. I would expect some kind of penalty, whether financial or perhaps a low-round draft pick for next year, because we're past this year, taken away from the Patriots for what they did. Then we get to the white whale everyone's talking about, Tom Brady. I think it's combined what you asked. I think there's going to be an element of guilt to what we know, just from what we have, and an element to the lack of forthcoming, the lack of being open and honest about what he did. And even, it just hurts him so much, I think, when he just tries to say something like, I don't even know who that is, about a guy who worked with him 15 years.
Yeah, I agree.
The equipment assistant. So those things are hard to justify, so I think there will be punishment. I'm not going to get in the game of predicting how many games, but I think there will be a suspension.
Andrew Brandt, Sports Illustrated, ESPN, MMQB, he's got a piece on this. A couple questions I have for you. A lot of people have asked, would anybody care if the Minnesota Vikings did this and Christian Ponder got caught, or is it because it's the New England Patriots with Tom Brady?
Yeah, I hear that too, and I understand it. I think there's a difference between caring and paying attention and discipline. I think we would not be all over ESPN talking about this if it was someone like that. But I'm going to trust the NFL that the punishment would be the same. So, again, there's two different distinctions there. No, people wouldn't care as much. But, yes, the penalties would be the same. That's my opinion.
Is this a more significant infraction than the Atlanta situation that you referenced or the Cleveland situation where they got caught text messaging and got fined significantly? Is this a more significant penalty?
Well, I think, those are what we have as precedent with this new model of the disciplinary football operations guy, Troy Vincent. So this will come down from Troy, who's in charge of game operations. It's not a Roger Goodell player discipline thing, but he'll get involved, I think, on the team aspect of it. I think the interesting thing is it's like that, yes. It's a game operations thing, whether texting from the owner's box or piping in crowd noise. It's just like that in terms of what goes on in the field. The difference here, which makes it more serious, is that it's a player. So it's not just those around the game, it's those playing the game that are involved. And that's where it's different. I mean, that's where, there are no players involved in the piped-in crowd noise. There were no players involved in the texting. Now you have a player involved, and he's the most marquee player in the league. So that's what makes it different. That's why from the team angle, I can see it being similar to those things. I can see it being a fine and a late-round draft pick, just like the piped-in crowd noise.
Andrew Brandt Andrew. I want to ask this because you've worked in front offices, you've been around the league. Is this something that you think teams are looking at as a serious infraction to the point that Tom Brady is, tainted a little bit?
I think teams are looking at more from the team angle than Brady. Listen, history follows everyone. And there's just a feeling that this team, A, has done something like this before with Spygate. B, has an owner that's very close with the commissioner. And C, may get even favorable treatment over the years because of that relationship. So everyone's kind of watching. And in that sense, maybe they are looking for something to happen where if it was a Cincinnati or someone else, you wouldn't have that same kind of eyes open from around the league, executives and owners. Listen, this didn't come out of thin air, right? This came from the Colts. And who knows if there are other teams besides the Colts calling the league office saying, hey, they've gotten away with stuff before, let's get after them. So, the league is beholden to 32 owners, and they've got to figure out how to balance that.
And that is another interesting point that people kind of feel like you kind of mentioned. They're the white whale. This is like the scofflaw here. Forget everybody else is doing things out here. Is this something that you think is prevalent in the league?
Let me say this. I hear a lot of this, and I've taken offense to this, where it's like a parking ticket. It's like a rolling through a stop sign. Here's the problem with that. What do you stand for? What do you stand for? If you have rules, then do you stand for, well, those are rules made to be broken? Okay. Or you stand for, no, we want these rules enforced because we have this level playing field, and if he's out there throwing less inflated footballs, then who knows what else is going on. If people want to cut corners one place, they tend to cut corners other places. I would think that's the feeling that everyone has to have here. And it's not, the bounty case where Sean Payton got a year suspension. That's all the penalty phase of this. I'm not saying it's the same as taking out players through bounties. What I'm saying is we have rules for a reason. We can't just sit around and say, yeah, it's no big deal, everyone breaks these rules.
Andrew Brandt, A.D. Brandt on Twitter and Sports Illustrated MMQB. He's got a great piece on why this is a big deal, and we'll see what penalties come down for Brady a little bit later on, possibly today. Maybe they'll bury it on the weekend. We'll find out. Andrew, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Always enjoyed, guys. Thanks.
Great job, Andrew Brandt. Great piece over at mmqb.com with Peter King and Andrew Brandt, former front office member of the Philadelphia Eagles, where he